I'm Melissa Case from Hat to Hem, and today is a Barbie day. When I was little, all of my toys were kind of divided between different areas. I had a toy box, and then we also had end tables that allowed for a lot of storage. So I would have different toys in different end tables, and I would very rarely ever have them all out at the same time because I was just that type of kid. So for the most part, I would only play with them one at a time. So it could be a Lego day, it could be a T-Bunny day, or it could be a Barbie day, and today is a Barbie day. As you know, the Barbie movie is coming out on July 21st, but this is not the first time there's been a Barbie movie. Starting in 2001 and going all the way to this year in 2023, there has been 42 Barbie movies. And I was there for the first 4. In 2001, Barbie and the Nutcracker came out. 2002 had Barbie as Rapunzel come out. 2003 had Barbie of Swan Lake, and then September of 2004 had Barbie as Princess and the Pauper. This one was by far my favorite. I loved all the Barbie movies, don't get me wrong, especially the dresses. I always thought the dresses were just so pretty. This one was special to me. For starters, it was the first Barbie movie that was a musical, and I was already into musicals at that age. But second, and most important, one of the main characters had dark hair. Now there's more representation now in the Barbies and in dolls in general, but back then, it was a lot of dolls with blonde hair and blue eyes. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they didn't look like me. And now here was this beautiful main character Barbie with dark hair in a blue dress that was not completely pink. And she sang, she was ambitious. I just thought she was the greatest thing. She also had a cat that acted like a dog, which I don't think is like that important to why I loved her, but like, it didn't hurt. I'm pretty sure this is not the first time I've said this on this channel, but I remember just drawing her dress, not even the Barbie, just the dress, because I loved it so much. I thought that was like the epitome of what a Barbie peasant dress should look like, and I guess I'm not particularly wrong. I don't know how many other peasant Barbie dresses there are, but I always thought that one was just perfect. Back when we were talking about the Little Women collaboration, my friend Marie and I both decided we also want to do a Barbie collaboration. The only problem is we both wanted Erika, the dark-haired Barbie, because of course we did. She was awesome. So we decided I would do a more screen-accurate interpretation of this costume, and Marie would do a historical version. I will have a link to her video down in my description. The analysis of this costume, as well as the differences between the one that's in all the promotional images versus the ones actually in the movie, will be available on my Patreon. That means we can just go ahead and talk about the fabrics. So I have 6 fabrics for this costume, and most of them are polyester because it's Barbie. How can you not have polyester when you're doing Barbie? The main fabric is this light blue polyester satin, or at least I'm pretty sure that's how it was described on the label. I also have the same polyester satin in light pink for the underskirt of the dress, and I bought this really light chiffon to go as an overlay on top of that light pink section. I have a white chiffon for the little, I guess, stomacher-ish section. The top part is gathered. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a stomacher or a chemise or what, but I have fabric for it. I'll be using fabric from my stash to give it just a little more stability behind it. I have this floral fabric. I'm trying to decide if I want to add a little bit of blue to it or if I want to just use it as is. I guess we'll see. I'll do a test section and see how that turns out. And lastly, we have some pink tulle to use this trim around the waist and the sleeves. All of this fabric, plus some ribbon for both this project and a future project, ended up costing $59.89. I should also probably mention this is a half-scale project, not a full-scale project. If it was a full-scale project, those numbers would be double, and I'm honestly really glad they aren't. So now we're going to head over to my half-scale dress form and start draping. I started out with a center front panel for the bodice, and I also did the center front panel for the skirt. When it comes to this type of project, I think it's better to start in the center front and then work my way around to the back. It's honestly really weird to think that I do this now because I remember when I started sewing, I was so afraid to drape or anything like that. I wanted to stick to the pattern and that was it. And this still, like, it isn't perfect, but it gets the job done. That's what matters, right? It always felt like draping was taking a risk, but sometimes I think it's worth it. And I always think that just getting started is the most difficult step to a project. At this point, I knew I had to address the floral fabric that I picked out. So for this first section, I tried to add just a little bit of blue here and there, and I just think it was too clunky. It just didn't really work for me. It's still just a little too bright. Here, I tried to just put some blue over the leaves. Major fail. Did not work at all. We're not even going to look at that any longer. And then down here, I actually did a little bit of a wash with the white paint and some water. And I think it toned down the fabric pretty nicely. And then you can see where I experimented with a little more blue, and I just don't think it works as well. So I think my current plan is to just do a light wash, and then I might add a little bit of blue here and there just to try and make it read just slightly more blue than green, but honestly I think just doing a wash is going to be enough at least. Okay, so I goofed. These two are supposed to not be going in the same direction. One of them is supposed to be going like this. So I cut out the wrong side. So I have to do it again. Now, normally I'd be a little annoyed at myself for wasting supplies, but I have an idea for this that I'm kind of playing with in the back of my head. So we'll see how that turns out. So I'm just going to put this aside from now, and if I have enough fabric from the rest of the project, I might be able to do something with this, but we'll see. Okay, I'll be honest, I did not expect these little patterned front pieces to be the first part of this project I got done, yet here we are. You can see I lined the back of them with just a little bit of muslin fabric just to finish off the edge, and then once the blue skirt is done it'll be tacked down to keep it open, but for now it's just kind of hanging free. I think the next thing I'm going to do is finish off this center front. So I'm going to remove this front panel, I'm going to line it with the chiffon, and then I'm going to take a separate piece and I'm going to do the gathered top. I put the chiffon onto the bodice, right underneath the bust line, right sides together. I stitched it down and then I flipped it up to make the little gathered section. I'm also going to attach a lining at the top, just to keep everything nice and neat up there. And then I'm going to attach the ribbons, which are just going to be sewn on the side and just kind of loose across. And then I will serge down the sides just to make sure everything stays exactly where it is and none of the fabric unravels. I used a little piece of ribbon to measure around the armhole, and then I used that same ribbon to kind of block out what I wanted the sleeve to be. Is this the best way of doing this? Probably not, but it got the job done and nobody needs to wear this, so I figured I would kind of let myself have a little bit of a shortcut here. I also cut out the bodice panels using the blue polyester, and I flatlined it with twill to give it a little bit more body. And then I serged the two layers together to keep everything nice and neat. The bodice panels were all then sewn together and pressed. For the center front panel, I did end up pressing everything towards the back because I wanted the blue fabric to look like it was a little bit above the stomacher, almost like it was a separate garment instead of just all one dress. I was hoping to kind of fake the layers, I guess. I also folded under the top edge that'll be around the neckline, and I stitched it down using my machine. The stitches are going to be hidden underneath a piece of lace, but even if they weren't, I wouldn't be too concerned about this because it's meant to be a Barbie dress. It's not meant to be historically accurate or anything like that, so I'm giving myself a little bit of leeway here. The sleeves don't need as much stability as the bodice, so instead of using twill, I just used some cotton muslin to interline them. After serging the pieces together, I pressed the bottom edge up, and I also cut a little bit of this tulle. This is the trim that goes around the bottom of the sleeve. It's gathered up, and then I attached it while I was hemming the sleeve just to save myself a step. I thought it was a little too long, so I gave it a little bit of a trim, and then I added the pink ribbon on top. I ran gathering stitches along the top, and I gently eased it into what is now the armhole of this bodice. I sewed a single seam from the bottom of the armhole all the way down to the waist, and I finished it off with that lace trim I mentioned earlier. Alright, it is Friday night. This video has to be up next Friday, and I'm gonna be away Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I think my main goal is to try and get this skirt done tonight. I'm not going to be so ambitious to say I want to get the entire project done, but I do definitely want to get this skirt done, so let's get started. I cut out the front panel and then I decided to do a narrow hem around the bottom. I really didn't want to do anything too big, so I thought the narrow hem would have been the best option. However, it started out okay, but then it very quickly became not okay. The fabric was just incredibly slippery, it moved around a lot, and I wasn't happy with how it turned out, so I decided to just fold it all under one more time and stitch it down. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it definitely was better than what it had been. I then cut out the same panel in the light chiffon. Again, this is very slippery fabric, so it didn't quite match up perfectly. It's alright, I purposely made the panels a little longer than I needed, so I wasn't too worried. I hemmed the bottom of the panel off camera because I was just so annoyed that I couldn't film it again. I was just done. Once that was done, I serged the two panels together. It had like a weird, slightly gathered effect to it, so I ended up just kind of pulling it along a little bit to try and flatten it out a little bit, which did work. Then I serged the little patterned panels and I connected them to the front panel. I am so excited about how the front of this looks. Oh my goodness, it's exactly what I was hoping for. Now I still have to do the blue part of the skirt, which, you know, fun, but getting this overskirt underskirt effect is what I was most worried about, and it worked out, even with this awful fabric. You can see where it still kind of has little pulls in it and just, I guess, imperfections, but it's fine. It's fine. This dress is not going to be moving around that much. It's just gonna chill on the dress form, so I am not concerned. It's also not going to a client or, you know, going to be worn by a human, so I think we're doing okay. Alright, on to the blue part. Alright, so I got the blue fabric cut out to roughly the length and width that I need, but I have not really attached it to the rest of the skirt yet or done anything with it that much other than cut out 20 inches of it. And honestly, 20 inches is probably a little bit long, but I wanted to give myself some wiggle room. Am I disappointed I didn't reach my goal of getting the skirt done tonight? Yeah, a little bit, but I have to be kind to myself because I am not a 20-year-old trying to throw a dress together in 2 weeks anymore. I am in my 30s now. I have a toddler. I have other stuff going on. And I need to remind myself that sometimes I just need to be kind to myself, especially when it comes to projects with short deadlines. This is not something that I can pull off as easily as I used to. And that's okay. I like my life right now, and it's different than when I started sewing, but it has a lot of value and a different kind of personal fulfillment. So now, instead of having as much sewing time as I used to, now that time is taken up with spontaneous cookie baking with a toddler, and that's kind of lovely. I can't complain at all because I'm happy. I'll be happier if I get this dress done and this video edited in time, but it is not my number one priority anymore, and that's okay. It's still a high priority though. I'd put this at like solidly number like 3 for the weekend, getting this dress done. But that's what tomorrow is for. So tomorrow, first thing I'm going to do as soon as I have time to sew, I'm going to work on getting the skirt done. Alright, we are in the home stretch now. I did a narrow rolled hem for the bottom of the blue fabric, which was significantly more successful than the front panel. I trimmed the fabric to match the angle that it is for the front panel. I wanted to make sure everything matched up nicely. And I also stitched up the center back. Since this is a Barbie dress, it will have a center back opening, which brings me to this issue with the bodice. I was trying to ignore it, but I did end up making the bodice just a smidge too small. But it's okay. I'm just going to use this little panel and that will just clear the gap and it'll be just enough. I also took time to understitch the seam allowance for the front panel to the blue fabric. This will just keep everything from rolling to the direction I don't want it to. It's a small detail, but I think it will affect how the finished product looks. I popped the skirt back onto my dress form, and now I just kinda messed around a little bit with that front panel because obviously it doesn't need to be this wide, but I did make it a little wider than necessary because I wanted it to have that nice fold look. And I wanted it to look nice if I happened to bend the dress form around a little bit. The top of the skirt was just gathered down to fit the dress form. Pretty straightforward. This is actually why I just used pretty much rectangles of fabric for the skirt. I just wanted to make it as easy for myself as possible. I popped the bodice on just to check to see how everything looked. And then it was time to make the little bit of tulle trim that's going to go around the waistline. It's very straightforward. It's just a little bit of tulle that's gathered up. I clipped it to the bodice first, and then I also added the skirt. This did feel a little risky trying to do both steps in one because there is going to be room for a mistake. So let's see how it turns out. Alright, I just sewed the bodice to the skirt. It's the moment of truth on if I mess this up or not. I'm so scared. I'm so scared because I don't want to redo it. But this is the moment where, like, if I'm going to make a really big mistake, it'll be right now. Like, fabric is going to be bunched up or something like that, or something's not going to be centered, or it's just going to look bad. And I'm genuinely afraid to turn this right side out because what if I messed up? It's fine. It's fine. I'm an adult, and I can handle if this dress is not right. All right, let's see. I might have gotten away with it. Alright, let's pop on the dress form and see. Correction. I did not pull it off. This tulle is all bunched up. So from here to here I have to unpick and sew again. However, I think that is the worst part here. I think everything else is kind of okay, so that's not that bad. I can work with that. Like, that's survivable. It's okay. But it's definitely not the end of the world, and I don't have to redo the entire dress, and that's what's important. Alright, that fixed it. That was honestly pretty easy. The only thing is, I do feel like this little ruffle is just a little bit too long, but hopefully a quick trim will tidy that right up. All that was left now were just some of the finishing details. For starters, I serged the waistline just to clean that up and make sure that none of the fabrics ended up fraying over time. I also ran an iron over the tulle because I didn't like that it was sticking straight out like that, so this just kind of keeps it where I want it to be. In the spirit of this being a Barbie dress, I did use Velcro for the back. I figured that was probably about as Barbie as I could get, so here we are. I also spent way too much time tying this little bow in the front because I just wanted it to lay the way I wanted to. But once I had it, I did tack it down to the actual bodice, so hopefully it stays where I want it to. Then the last step was tacking down the corner of these front panels. And it's done! I cannot overstate how excited I am about this dress. There are probably a couple of things I would have done a little differently if I had had a little bit more time to work on this, but who cares? There can be beauty in imperfection, and I'm just happy to have this dress, and I think that's what matters. As always, thank you so much to my patrons on Patreon for all of their support. This dress was 100% funded by my Patreon, so thank you so much. This dress is dedicated to all of you. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it, and also let me know if you have a favorite doll dress that is just out there. It can be Barbie, American Girl, anything. Just let me know. I like this kind of stuff, and I like learning about my viewers. Don't forget to check out Marie's video over at Historical Belle so you can see what a historical version of this costume would look like, and I will see you next time.